my preach because I really think that our church has such an amazing acumen for admin, right? Think about all the stuff that happens on a Sunday morning, from the band to the preach to Addie doing the video back there. Thank you, Addie, you legend. To Carl doing the food. All this has to come together, and it comes together and works so smoothly every single Sunday. And that's only Sunday. Then you talk about the weekend or weekday things like the family fun day that's needed, all this organization. And really, this doesn't just happen by accident, obviously. It's because someone's there organizing, pulling the strings of all these things to make it happen. And this is the same with the preaching rota, of course, which really helps me because we actually get our preaches way in advance, like months in advance. We know what we're going to be speaking on. And this really helps me sort of develop what I want to say. I like to sort of sit on the topic that I've been given, sort of stew on it, meditate on it, think about it. I particularly like doing this when I'm resting at night, trying to fall asleep. I don't know why, it just occupies my mind. It's something to think about, but of course, you have the occupational hazard of then falling asleep and forgetting what you just thought about. You have all this revelation, and then it's gone in the morning, right? And I was following this path where you sort of think about it, and then about 2 weeks out is when I start to really put it together and stick it down on paper and start hopefully to make something a bit coherent and maybe with a little nugget of wisdom, maybe. And I was doing this with this passage that I've been given this morning as well, which is Galatians 2:20, which says this: I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. A verse so full of meaning, of death, life, sonship, faith. And so I started thinking about dying to oneself and how that leads to, abundance of life that Jesus gives. And all these things were going through my mind, and I felt I had quite a good structure that I was going to go with. And then comes the 2 weeks that I'm going to start putting things down on paper. And 2 weeks ago, today, was May 11th. And on the Sunday, I was in Tots with the little kids, because if you don't know, I have a little 2-year-old, so I was in there with him, and we were having a good time. There were obviously some tears from some of the kids because they don't like leaving their parents, and the painting activity didn't quite go to plan, but it was still all good. And I was telling Lydia this, my wife, in the car on the way home, and I was saying all these things that had happened. And she said, oh yeah, we had a great time in the main service as well. We had this amazing guest speaker, Andy Robertson, and he talked about the fact that he actually was physically dying because he got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and how he had started to think about living for Christ after realizing what death is going to be for him. And he realized he was talking about dying to self. And I was thinking all this time that he was saying this, I was like, whoa, this is my topic. This is the thing I'm thinking about, or whatever. And Aaliyah keeps going. She's talking, and she even says that he even spoke on my passage in Galatians 2. And I can physically hear all these notes I have stored in my head just going in the shredder, just like literally like they're going to be gone. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, I have 2 weeks. I've got 2 weeks now to think of something completely different, right? And 2 weeks sounds like a long time, but when you have a 2-year-old and an infant, it's not a lot of time. You don't have a lot of spare time. So I was sort of starting to panic. But then I realized Andy had said something to me. Andy McCall had said something to me a few years before that came to the forefront of my mind. He said to me this, right? I was saying to him, right, we have these preachers that we're getting. This is a few years ago. We got a preaching rota for one of the topics we were doing. I said to him, all these topics seem very similar. Like, how are we all going to, bring something new? And he said this. He said, that's the beauty of having so many preachers. Everyone brings their own revelation and comes at it differently. So hopefully, even though Andy talked so brilliantly and had such an amazing testimony, this is Andy Robertson had such an amazing testimony 2 weeks ago, hopefully I can come at it slightly differently and bring something different out. We'll try anyways. So that's what we'll do. We'll go back to our passage in Galatians 2, which says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Crucified with Christ, dying to self, or as Jesus puts it in Matthew 10, he says it differently. He says, Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Losing your life to find it, dying to self, getting up on the cross and being crucified with Christ. Let's be honest, there's a large part of us that when we hear those phrases, we start to recoil and be like, well, that doesn't sound super fun, right? That doesn't sound like something like I want to dive straight into. We might recoil at the idea of giving up our lives, right, for Christ. And because in reality, we have quite nice lives, right? We get to go do things like Radio 1 weekend, and we get to go watch the parade that Liverpool's going to have with the trophy on the weekend, and all these different things that we get to do. And the sun's out and shining, and it's summer. Life is good. I don't want to give up that life that I have. And this is probably the widespread reaction we have throughout the church this morning. But if you ask yourself why, you must ask yourself, why do you have that reaction? Why do you have that reaction? Because when we think about it in detail, if you're a Christian this morning, it's not a rational reaction. Because if you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus is God, don't you? You believe that he created the universe in an instant, don't you? You believe that he is here, he's omnipresent, he's with you all the time, guiding you. You believe, as Chris Tomlin likes to sing, that he's all-powerful, indescribable, uncontainable. So why wouldn't you want to hand over your life to him? It's a simple answer to a simple question, sadly, and the answer is the reason I don't want to hand over control of my life is because I know what's best for me. I know what is best for my life, what decisions I should make. I know how things are going to work out. I know how to make right decisions. I know how to do all this. I want control of my own life. And if God was here, right, he would tell you, Russell knows what he's doing, right? Russell knows what he's doing. I don't need to be involved. It's all going to work out fine. Pride is such a funny thing, isn't it? Because when it's so illogical, when it's exposed to the light like that. Yet all of us struggle with this war of the heart, of letting the King of Kings set his throne upon our heart and ruling over us. Instead, what we do is we get our little throne. It's probably made out of like those plastic chairs that are in the kids' room that are like this big, and we think, this is great, I've got a throne on my own heart. When Jesus has probably built this amazing throne on your heart, it's probably got like jewels made of sapphires, probably like glittering, and looks amazing, and we just sit there and go, nope, I have my own throne. You don't get on this throne, I've got it all. This tug of war that we have, trying to wrestle control so we have control. It's something that even Paul talks about in Romans 7. He frames it in terms of sin, but when he says this, he says, I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind, making me a prisoner to the law of sin at work within me. What he's saying in that passage, if you read the whole thing, is that I have this war that's going on inside me. I know I want to do what's right, but really I find myself doing what's wrong, and it's this tug of war inside of us. The constant struggle to give up control, to let go of sin and give Jesus his rightful place in our lives is a real battle that we face every single day. But it's a battle that's well worth the fight. And you notice I've started this sermon focusing on the first part of our passage in Galatians, which says, I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live. I'm going to frame this as the sacrifice. That's the sacrifice portion of this passage, being crucified with Christ. That's the sacrifice that we have to make, that Christ has made for us and we give back to him. But what I want to focus on in this next part of the sermon this morning is the second half, which is that Christ lives with me. And that I'm going to frame as the reward for our sacrifice. Christ lives in me. And the presence of Christ in our lives is such a familiar topic that we lose the awe-inspiring nature of it. Familiarity leads to us forgetting who this is who lives with us. It's really astonishing that God comes and makes his throne on our hearts and is here with us all the time. And if you want to remind yourself of who this God is, well, the whole Bible is a pretty good place to go to, but I particularly am partial to Isaiah. And Isaiah 40 through 55 is just time after time of God saying, I am the all-powerful God. I've come to rescue you. I am the all-powerful God. I've come to rescue you. And he frames it in loads of different ways. But I'm going to read from Isaiah 40 this morning, which is one of the great passages in the Bible, in my opinion, which says, tell the towns of Judah, your God is coming. The sovereign Lord is coming in power. He will rule with a powerful arm, and he brings his reward with him as he comes. He will feed his flock like a shepherd, carry the lambs in his arms, holding them close to his heart, and gently lead the mother sheep with their young. This is the God who lives in you, who wants to set up the throne on your heart. He comes in power, but he also comes in gentleness. He is there. He is good. He is kind. He is gentle. And he fundamentally knows what we need. He knows that we are battling to give him control of our lives and will gently transform us into his children. He comes with power. He comes with gentleness. But I love what it says there in Isaiah 40:10. Did you catch it? He says he brings his rewards with him. He brings his reward with him. And this is what I was thinking about when I had to readjust where I was going with my sermon, is all those rewards that Jesus brings with him. Because he doesn't just say, I want you to give up all control and then just leave us there, and we don't see any reaction in our lives because of that. No, he says, give up control so I can come and bring these rewards with me, that you may live life and life to the full. And these rewards, I'm gonna call them the rewards of self-death. These are rewards that Jesus promises to bring with him if you lay down your life to him and give him control. And there are so many of these rewards that are scattered throughout the Bible. We could spend the entire afternoon talking about them. But I personally would like to see Liverpool lift the title. So I'm going to be a bit brief with what I said. I'm just going to focus on 4 of them this morning. But they are multitude. And the 4 I want to talk about this morning that Jesus gives to us as rewards when we hand over our lives to him are these: truth, life, peace, and hope. And we'll start by talking about truth, this first promise of self-death that Jesus brings. It says, I think if we were transported maybe 15, 20 years ago, I wonder if I would feel the need to bring truth as one of these great promises that Jesus gives us. Maybe I'd focus on something else. But right now in this world that we live in, this world is so full of manipulation, propaganda, and lies that the truth will set us free. And Jesus says, in stark contrast to this world of manipulation and propaganda, Jesus says very clearly in John 14, I am the truth. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the truth. And he also says, I will ask the Father, this is a little bit further in John 14, and he will give you the Spirit of truth. And in the world today where truth is relative, truth is flexible, truth is irrelevant, and truth is irreverent, having the one who is the truth is such a privilege. So many people in this world are stumbling around in darkness, twisted and turned by lies and manipulation and propaganda. The fact that we have this firm foundation of the truth cannot be overstated. And it's something that other people have started to recognize. And I've heard this myself in a few different places, right? I've heard there's a bit of a revival going on in churches today with people coming in, seeking the truth. Don't just go by my word. Even The Guardian picked up on this a couple weeks ago. This was The Guardian. And it says that sort of black there says this. It says, despite the assumption that secularity is on the rise, many people are finding the truth in the church. People need this truth. Don't ever underestimate what power this truth is in your life. It is the firm foundation that you can stand upon. The second promise that I want to talk about this morning is life. John 10, Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have life to the full. And there are so many of these topics this morning, these next 3 topics that we'll talk about. It's hard for me to convey just through speaking to you what these things are, how you can experience them, because they're experiences, right? It's hard just to preach on them and say God will give you life. You have to experience it yourself in order to know it. So the best way to try to preach on that is to give testimony, so you can see a little portion of where Jesus can give life. And for this one, I'll give you just a small testimony from me and Lydia about how Jesus gave us life and energy. Some of you will know that me and my wife were youth leaders at this church for 6 years, between 2013 and 2019, which is a long time ago now, which shocks me. It's like 6 years ago now. But anyway, so over those 6 years, we helped lead on the Sunday, and we had a Friday group of youth, right? And at the time, for the first 3 or 4 years when we helped lead these groups, so we didn't have a car, we didn't have access to a car, mainly for financial reasons, and so we were cycling everywhere, right? And the Friday group used to meet at St. Margaret's Church up in Egbeth, and it was a couple-mile cycle up the river from where we were living in our flat. And every Friday night, you can imagine, right, we come home from work after the week, we're quite tired, we're quite exhausted, and we're confronted with this fact that we're going to have to go on this cycle up the Mersey in the middle of winter, facing snow, wind, rain, sleet, all 4 at the same time. This is Liverpool, obviously, so that is possible. And you can imagine there were quite a few Friday nights where me and Lyd were like, we just can't do it. And one of us had to be strong. It switched between the two. One of us had to be like, no, come on, we can do it. Sometimes it was me, sometimes it was Lydia. But I'll tell you what, we got up there, and every single Friday night, we were filled with life. We were filled with energy because the Lord was there and he was working. And I can remember one night when this was particularly stark. I had gotten home from work. I'd gotten up at 5:45. I'd cycled to Liverpool Lime Street, got a train, had work, got a train home, got back, threw food in my mouth, and I was just exhausted. I was like, I don't want to go. I just don't want to go. This is too much today. But I went. And I can remember having such energy and life in that place, that so much so that I actually said to Lydia on the way home, we were cycling back down towards Otterspool from Egbeth, and we were just about to cross over the Merseyrail. I could tell you exactly where we were. And I said to Lydia, now I know what Jesus means when he says that we could have life to the full. That energy that he gives you when you're on mission to him and you give control over to him, there's nothing like it. There's also nothing like the peace that God can give you. In John 14, it says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid. There's so many testimonies I've heard in this church where people have gone through experiences and said, I just had peace. I had peace when it didn't make any sense to have peace. And there was one testimony Lydia saw unfold before her eyes a few weeks ago when she went to Dunham Massey, the National Trust House, towards Warrington. She was there to see the garden. And this was when I was working and Caleb was in nursery, and she had Simeon, our little infant, with her. And Simeon, he was getting hungry, so she needed to find a place to sit down to feed him for maybe like 40 minutes. And she looked around and she saw 2 benches, one with a man, one with a woman on. Obviously, she tended to go over towards the one with the woman because she'd be breastfeeding, so that's a bit less awkward, And she said to the woman, do you mind if I just sit here and feed my baby? And the woman said, yeah, of course, no problem. I'm just here having a bit of quiet time. And Lydia went, oh, like, what quiet time are you having? Thinking this might be a mindfulness thing or might be something like that. She said, oh, no, I'm praying. And Lydia said, "Oh, what are you praying about?" And she said, "I'm a Christian. I'm praying to God." So obviously that meant that they were off on a conversation then, weren't they? And it turned out, funnily enough, that this man and woman were married. And they were having their separate prayer time on two different benches, which was quite entertaining. But anyways, Lydia started talking to this woman, and if anyone knows my wife, she could make a friend in about 30 seconds, right? She went, this is a total detour. I didn't say this in the first service, but one time she made a friend in like 30 minutes, and they've been friends for life. They don't even live anywhere near Liverpool, genuinely, so that's just who she is. So she was talking to this woman, and this woman was actually telling her about how she's had quite a rough time recently. Her brother had died in a hit and run. Her kids were just going crazy. This was an older woman, so her kids were older. Her kids were just all over the place. She'd had medical problem after medical problem after medical problem. And yet she finished the conversation with Lydia saying this. She said, "But through it all, my God has been faithful." This woman had so many things to worry about, yet she put her faith in God, and her state of peace shone through. This is the type of peace Jesus offers to you if you make him king of your heart. And finally, this morning, I'll touch on hope. Colossians 1:27 says this. It says, "To them God has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory." And this beautifully links, doesn't it, with Galatians 2, where it says, "Christ in me, Christ in you, the hope." And every day we are bombarded with bad news, wars, famine, disasters. It seems particularly stark at the minute with so many things going on. And I really don't know how people live in such a disastrous world and find hope if they don't have hope in Jesus Christ. Where would you turn to? Where would you find your hope in this life? And I see a little part of this in my own work, which can be summarized as basically Christian international development, where I go into countries that are very, very poor and help them the little bit that we can through our NGO. And this has been a hard lesson for me to learn, because you go into these desperate situations where people need so much, and in reality, there's only a little bit you can do. We work with water, so we try to provide water where there is none. But that is only like a portion of what people need. And I've had to wrestle with this over the last few years and come to the conclusion that actually, you know what? I am not in control. I can do what I can do. My job is to do the best the task that God set before me. But all these other needs that I can't do, I have to give. I have to put my hope in God that he can provide. Because otherwise it'd be overwhelming. Otherwise it'd be soul crushing. Otherwise it would be breaking. You go in and the need is abundant. But I have to put my hope that there is God out there. There is this God, Jesus Christ, who is in there, who's with me while I'm in these places. And he is providing where I can't see it. And he's providing hope and life and truth to these people as well, where I can't see it being happening. I have to put my hope in Jesus. And when I do that, you realize that actually, if you try to do it by yourself, you'll burn yourself out, man. So give up that control. Give it up over to God. Put your faith in him, that he is doing things that you cannot even imagine. Even in the deepest, darkest, most despairing points in your life, God is still there working. He is the hope of glory. And these are our promises that Jesus gives to us. Our promises, these rewards that he brings with him as he comes into our lives, if we can just give him control. And as we conclude, you might be thinking, this is all great, but I'm struggling with that first bit of letting God take control of my life, of giving him that throne and not trying to wrestle it away from him. I want these promises that you speak of, but I just cannot give up that control. Well, the reality is that is everyone in this room. Everyone in this room is on a spectrum. Some people have given parts of their life to God. Some people have given none of their lives to God. Some of them have given lots of their lives to God. But there's still parts that we've not given over control. And so we can come together as a church and encourage each other. That's why we meet every Sunday. We come here and we worship God and we encourage one another. Give God control of that situation because you can't do it. You only will find peace, hope, truth, life if you hand over the reins to Him. So be encouraged. And I want to leave you with an encouragement as I invite the band back up as well. I want to leave you with an encouragement that this is a fight that you can and will win. And I want to tell you about an important weapon of this war in this battle that you have. And it's the humble invitation. Now, this invitation, this is my and Lydia's wedding invitation from 12 years ago. And with it, we invited our family, friends, and selected dignitaries, such as Jackie Chan and David Attenborough, to our wedding. And if you think that's a joke, it is not. We actually got a nice letter from David Attenborough's secretary saying that he had to attend his sister's birthday party, which, to be honest, where's your priorities, dude? It's on my wedding, right? This is a nice invitation, I think. But there's a much better invitation that Jesus has for you. He says in Revelation 3, he says, "Here I am, I stand at the door and knock, and anyone who hears my voice and opens the door will come in and eat with that person and they with me." To win this battle, to give God control, all you have to do is RSVP. God is already there. He's saying, let me in. Open the door. RSVP every single day. When you wake up, say, God, today I give you control. And you'll be amazed at what rewards Jesus brings with him.